Farming Simulator, and today we're going to have a look at precision farming and weeds, and in particular what happens to the yield and the environmental score for different ways of dealing with them. So you can see in the background I have harvested a field and I then mulched it and limed it, and I've then done a number of options. You see here I am ploughing the field. That means we won't get any weeds. I then seeded and rolled and harvested this, and each time I am planting wheat with automatic fertilizer running and recycling. So I'll the first example, once I had harvested, mulched and limed, I ploughed the field, seeded it, rolled it and harvested it. I then went back to the point that it had been limed and seeded it, and you'll see that in a minute. Seeded it and rolled it and then saved the game and took a copy, and that then allowed me to do a bunch of other testing. So I then looked at what happened to the yield if I did nothing. So we just let the weeds grow and harvested it. So you can see me here replanting the field. What happens if I used See and Spray to apply an optimal amount of herbicide? What happens if I used a mechanical weeder? And lastly, what happened if I just applied herbicide without See and Spray? And I'm going to go through all of the results in a bit. They are not what I expected, if I'm honest. And it's just worth saying that the idea for this video came from one of my channel patrons, that was Mark, and he has also tested some of these and got the same results. So although the results might not be what you expect, they are what happens in the game. So yeah, let's finish looking at the pretty pictures and jump into the data. So enough pretty pictures, let's get stuck into what I have done. So I'm running precision farming. The results may be different without precision farming. I may have a look at rerunning all of this testing with precision farming turned off. Obviously, some of it is not valid. You don't get See and Spray without precision farming. So if you're interested in that, stick a comment below and I might have a look at it. What I did, and I have kind of summarized it already, but let's go through it again just to be clear. I harvested the field with whatever crop was in there, in whatever state it was in, and I then mulched and limed the field to give me a baseline field that is as you would expect to get in game. No F12 easy dev controls. I did it all properly. From there I then started off by, well, I saved the game at that point and backed up a copy of it so I could go back to it after I'd done the first round of testing. I then ploughed the field, planted it, and did automatic fertilizing at the same time as planting, rolled and harvested. I then went back to the original save that I had at the point where I had limed. I planted it with a direct drill again, did optimal fertilizing and rolled it, and took a copy of the save at that point so that I could then do the 4 separate tests of just let the field grow out and harvest it, apply herbicide using See and Spray and harvest it, use a mechanical weeder, that was a hoe, and harvest it, and just spray herbicide and see what happens and harvested it. So those are the 5 tests that I've done to see what happens. And I've already just explained all of that. So that's just written out what I've just spoken about. So let's move on. Here are the results. So the kind of what I'm taking as the baseline is actually ploughing the field so we get no weeds. If you plough and then direct drill, you don't get hit by a penalty from precision farming for ploughing. So, and worth saying as well that the field did not have a needs ploughing state, so we weren't being penalized by not ploughing for the other tests. So you'll see later on one of the tests where the mechanical weeding test where I didn't plough actually got the same yield as ploughing. So ploughing didn't give a bonus in terms of yield, it just meant there were no weeds. So just to be clear on that. So I took that as the baseline, as kind of the 100% yield, and that gave us 57,610 litres, an environmental score of 83, which gives an environmental bonus of about 10%. And I'm going to come back to the environmental bonuses because they obviously affect how much you get paid when you sell your crop, but there is a yield difference in a lot of cases. So next was the do nothing case. So I mulched, limed, seeded, rolled, and harvested. So we had big weeds in the field. And in that case, I got 55,342 litres, or about a 4% drop in yield. And that also gave me an environmental score of 83 because I had essentially done the same things. And that does show you that ploughing doesn't give you a penalty for the environmental score if you direct drill afterwards. Yes, it's a bit cheaty. It's how the game works. So again, we've got a 10% bonus there. The next test was see and spray. So this is with precision farming is sold as, the best way to deal with your weeds. You get a bonus in the environmental score. You get the maximum weed treating bonus, but you still get the same yield penalty as if you did nothing. And you actually get the same yield penalty as if you just sprayed. So you're buying some fairly expensive kit to actually get no difference in yield. So I got 55,225 litres. So I take that as no difference. That's kind of in the noise of how the game works. So again, a 4% penalty in yield, but we did get a 98 environmental score on the field. So in this case, 14.4% bonus. For some reason, I didn't get quite the maximum fertilizing bonus, but it would otherwise be 15%. So that's quite a big one. I think if you apply herbicide, you don't get any more yield as if you did nothing. What you do get is a bonus on the environmental score, and I'll talk about what that means in a bit. Next, I did the mechanical weeding. So mulch, lime, seed with fertilizer, roll, and then I progressed a month and we got medium weeds. So I then used a hoe and that removed all of the weeds and then harvested, and we got the same yield as if I ploughed and more yield than if you applied herbicide. So we were back up at 57,564 litres. The plus, we get a better environmental score because we've done some weed treatment. So we got 22 out of 30 for our weeding score rather than 15. And that gives us an environmental bonus of nearly 12.5%. So most of the environmental bonus, more yield. Okay, I'll talk about what those numbers mean in a moment. And the last one was just spraying. So I just brought a hardy sprayer, just sprayed the whole field in herbicide. We got the same yield as if we did see and spray or nothing. So 55,277 litres in this case. So a 4% hit in yield. And we got an environmental score of 86. So we got slightly better on our weed treatment than doing nothing. So the only thing that's changing in these environmental scores is the weed treatment. There's a little bit of noise in the herbicide, in the fertilizer, but it's not really affecting the big picture. So that was a shock for me. I expected if I applied herbicide to kill the weeds, I wouldn't lose the yield that I lose if I do nothing or if I spray everything. So that to me was a surprise. That's going to push me more towards mechanical weeding or ploughing. So if you need to plough, definitely plough. If not, mechanical weeding, because you're getting 4% more yield out of it. It might take you a little bit longer. But I use the horse mechanical the horse hoe, and that had a 12-meter working width, so it's not horrendous, and you're not paying for any chemical. So time versus cost and all that. You can also, with the mechanical weeding step, once you've done mechanical weeding, you can run over the field with the see and spray. You will apply no herbicide, but you can then max out your environmental score as well. And in that case, you get maximum yield and maximum environmental score. You have a higher equipment cost because you need to buy both. But if you're farming on a large scale, that might pay off. And I'll talk about the numbers on the next slide. So if we think about leaving the weeds versus spraying. So you just let the weeds grow or you do see and spray. We get the same yield, but with see and spray, you get an extra about 4.5% on the environmental score bonus. So you would need to sell about £2 million worth of crops to recover the cost of buying the equipment. And that's based on the John Deere sprayer, which is 91,500. I didn't factor in the herbicide cost because the herbicide you use is minimal, but you do need to do a decent amount of work to recover that cost or be cash positive. So think about that. Are you a farm that's going to be harvesting in, say £1 million a year's worth of crops? If you're not, and you're not going to be farming for a long time, you might just want to let the weeds grow. You'll get the same amount of crop. You won't get quite the environmental bonus, but you've not spent, the best part of 100 grand on a sprayer. Now, you might be using that sprayer to do fertilizing as well, or fertilizing contracts, and then that kind of changes. So something to think about. Plowing versus spraying. So again, with spraying, so this is see and spray, you get 4% less yield, but you get the higher environmental bonus versus maximum yield and a 10% environmental bonus. And actually, those work out about the same. So if you need to plow the field, definitely plow the field. Maybe if you've got a big plow the field anyway, because you're going to get as much as if you didn't plow and then see and sprayed. So hopefully these numbers are making sense to people. The last one is really kind of interesting. Mechanical weeding versus see and spray. So when I say spraying on this slide, I mean see and spray. With see and spray, you've got 4% less yield, but a 14.5% bonus versus a 12.3% bonus. So if you do the same maths as the one above, we're getting a 12.3% bonus from mechanical weeding versus a total sell price bonus of about 10% for see and spray. So it's always better to be using a mechanical weeder. I am not going to say it is better to be hoeing. I am much more mature than that. So really, I think that's the last slide that I had. It was. So I was kind of shocked by this, just going back to the numbers. Basically, you are better to plow or mechanical weed, even versus see and spray. And I know, so I had a comment on the multiplayer video where I spoke about that I was making this, and someone said, I think with see and spray, you don't get a yield penalty because you're applying a lot less herbicide. You do. You get the same one. You get the same one as if you leave the weeds in the field. You get the same one as if you coat the field in herbicide. I don't know if that's intentional. The interesting thing that comes out of this for me is, and it's something that I have spoken about, or that's come up when the alien Paul and I are talking about precision farming, is that it appears, although it encourages you to use chemicals just with better technology, but actually it's encouraging you to use a mechanical weeder because you get higher yield, but slightly lower bonus, but actually overall you get more. So I think this is a good thing. It's encouraging you. Precision farming is supposed to be about lowering environmental impact, encouraging you to plow less, encouraging you to direct drill, encouraging you to use less chemicals. And actually, these numbers encourage you to use a mechanical weeder versus a sprayer. That is not the conclusion I expected. I have generally always used chemicals when I've been doing precision farming. I think actually I have done some weeding. So in future, I'm going to be planning a lot more around using mechanical weeding. And if I can't get in early enough to do mechanical weeding, I think maybe just leave it. Yeah, so hopefully you found this video interesting. If you have, click the like button. I'm sure there are going to be comments and questions or whatever, so stick those below. And if you're new to the channel and you found this interesting, maybe think about subscribing, and I will see you next time.